He spreads this hate, and he does it for no other reason but to, one, invigorate his base, and then two, to divide so people don't notice what else is going on.
He must be blind and deaf, because if he didn't hear what they were saying, then I don't understand it. Look, this is a game. This is about dividing the country. This is about dividing and raising the issue of racism across the country.
Some of Trump's opponents blasting him after those "send her back" chants rose up from the audience at that rally in North Carolina and went 13 seconds before being interrupted by the president. They were, of course, specifically targeting Congresswoman Omar, one of the 4 congresswomen the president has spent these past few days attacking. Bernie Sanders today posted that he was with the Minnesota Democrat last night. As the crowd started chanting, he said she was unfazed, and he went on to write, "Elon has incredible courage. She won't back down to Trump's hate, and neither will we." Politico magazine puts last night into context, and we quote, "Earlier in the week, when Trump defended himself against charges of racism, insisting many people agree with me, it was crowds like these he almost certainly had in mind, but until right then and there, he hadn't heard directly from them. A live audience feeding back direct proof that this was something he could keep running on." Back with us are A.B. Stoddard and Eliza Collins. A.B., I want to play something from our mutual friend, host of the 4 p.m. Eastern Hour here, Nicole Wallace, on the air just today.
Who is the Democratic leader who can say this is a drop everything, get on an airplane, go to the steps of the Capitol, go to a central location in Des Moines, Iowa, go to New Hampshire, hold hands even if you hate each other, and say this is who we are?
A.B., it struck me as a very good question and the kind I'd like to pass along to you. The Democrats are going through this so-called purity test. They insist they can chew gum and walk at the same time, that the systemic societal issues they want to go about fixing can also be in the form of a candidate. Do you see a unifier out there, the kind of person Nicole was just talking about?
That is the central question, Brian. I mean, Joe Biden is still the lead poller. He is the person that most people have expressed faith and confidence in their one mission, which is to beat Donald Trump. This is also a very divided party. And Donald Trump is on to a few things. The chant last night was repugnant. But he knows there's a constituency for this, just as you described from Politico's description of this. He knows that there is. He also knows that Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or Ms. Cortez are going to give this nominee, whoever it is, a hard time, and they will exact a purity test on whoever ends up leading the party. It will be divisive. They might say anti-Semitic things again. And he wants the party. He wants that Bernie scene. He wants leaders of the party to be married to these 4. He's actually used that verb. They're married now. They've married them. And so while the speaker will continue to fight with these people when they give her a hard time and say she's coddling, abusers in detention centers by rushing this money off and not demanding more concessions from Republicans, this is a central question among Democrats. How will we pull together behind a nominee, and who will it be? It is no longer clear it's Joe Biden unless he comes back fighting and describes to the party that the path forward is through the center in convincing terms. But he's going to get so much heat from the left from now until the end of this race, and we just don't know if he's going to win it.
Eliza, using your equally formidable powers of description, what must it be like for a Republican member of Congress, let's say a member of Congress that just scooted by in the last election, to defend and protect that seat with this going on?
Well, incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, we saw some of our colleagues on the Hill reporting someone like Martha McSally in Arizona, who actually lost her Senate election in 2018 and then was appointed to a seat, but is up in 2020. She was on her phone every time she walked past reporters. They do not want to talk about this. It is incredibly uncomfortable because while the base certainly does have agree with the president or have appealed to the president on this, there are a whole lot of Americans that deeply, deeply disagree. And these Republicans in tough districts and states have to win over a lot more than the base, but they also can't lose the base. And so they're in this very tough predicament. We saw people not talking about these comments for about 48 hours, and until last night when we saw the chants happen, Republicans did start to come out today and criticize the chants, but they were careful not to criticize the president. And that is just kind of shows how they're trying to have it both ways here. It's very uncomfortable for them.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.